minutes, a cabbie picks up a dangerous passenger. In tonight's film thriller, she's deadly seductive and has a passion for murder. That's after the day's news and sport from the BBC with Peter Sissons and Helen Rollison.
Arthur Scargill breaks with Labour and sets up a new party, the Socialist Labour Party. The Labour leadership say he's years out of date. The Tories say it highlights deep splits. President Clinton in Bosnia. He tells American troops they're heroes for peace. And Atherton goes first ball and England go 2-1 down in the South African one-day internationals. Good evening. The President of the National Union of Mine Workers, Arthur Scargill, for years a thorn in the side of Labour leaders, has finally set up his own breakaway party. The Socialist Labour Party will be launched on May the 1st and will challenge Labour in local elections and the general election. Tony Blair's office said his defection simply showed how much Labour had been modernised. The Conservatives said it forced into the open fundamental splits which Labour had been trying to keep hidden.
Arthur Scargill has been working secretly for months to establish his new party. He hopes to have candidates ready for elections later this year and isn't worried by what Tony Blair might say.
They will be pleased to see people like me leave the Labour Party, which no longer supports socialism or even pretends to support socialism.
Mr. Scargill's confident his party will get wide support on the left.
We shall be putting forward an alternative policy which calls for example for a free health service, for education without public schools, for a society where unemployment is completely banished, where homelessness is a thing of the past. In other words, a real socialist policy, a real socialist programme.
And what about Socialist Labour will be recruiting members in England, Scotland and Wales and will have an official launch in the spring on May Day. Mr. Scargill wouldn't say whether candidates would be ready in time for the May council elections, but his wife Anne, seen here at a colliery sit-in 3 years ago, is being encouraged by local mine workers to stand for Socialist Labour in next month's Hemsworth by-election. Mr. Scargill's defection had been expected after he failed at last year's Labour conference to stop the rewriting of Clause 4 and the abandoning of Labour's historic commitment to public ownership. But the new party can't point to any other big names on the left. Tommy Sheridan of Scottish Militant Labour, who fought against the poll tax, walked out of the first meeting, protesting at the way Mr. Scargill wanted centralised control of his new party. Tony Blair hadn't taken action already against Mr. Scargill, anxious not to turn him into a martyr, and the shadow cabinet has been gratified to find that the breakaway party has been shunned in advance by left-wing Labour MPs and union leaders. Labour think Mr. Scargill's half a century out of date.
The changes that have led to Arthur Scargill leaving the Labour Party are the same changes that have led thousands of people to join the Labour Party and have made it the fastest growing party in the whole of Europe.
Arthur Scargill is anxious to get going because he thinks that under Tony Blair, Labour will eventually cut its link with the trade unions and that the breakaway party will attract disenchanted socialists. But the union movement shows no sign of a lurch to the far left, and New Labour doesn't see Socialist Labour as a threat. Nicholas Jones, BBC News.
President Clinton has spent the day in Bosnia, giving his personal support to American troops serving with the NATO-led peacekeeping force. In a morale-boosting speech at Tuzla in northern Bosnia, he told an audience of hundreds of US soldiers they were heroes for peace.
The fog cleared and the presidential transport aircraft landed at Tuzla Air Base, probably the safest place in the whole of Bosnia. It was an event not just planned but staged for television, with the aircraft behind the president and in front of him 1,000 of his soldiers here to implement the Dayton Peace Agreement. He addressed them as their commander-in-chief.
I am proud to stand with you today on dry ground. I come with a simple message. Your country is very proud of you. Here, our nation, through you, can make a difference between a war that starts again and a peace that takes hold. From the highest commander to the newest recruit, that difference lies in your hands.
Though he was briefed by the commanders, his principal mission was to see and be seen with his soldiers. What he did not have an opportunity to see was what they were actually doing on the front lines, here on Mount Vish, from which Tuzla used to be bombarded by Serbian artillery and which was in turn pounded by American air power last September. No hard feelings, apparently.
That's a guide pin for a NATO bomb.
It helped the president's case today that the peace plan is holding and his troops are getting on famously with the Serbs. Martin Bell, BBC News, Tuzla.
Here, health officials in Nottinghamshire and South Yorkshire have begun a huge vaccination programme to protect children from a rare strain of meningitis. It follows the death of a 17-year-old boy from the disease last night, the 8th case in the area in recent weeks.
Special buses were laid on to take pupils to Wales High School in Rotherham. 1,300 young people have been vaccinated here. 17-year-old Christopher Vernon died last night after being taken ill on Thursday. The decision to vaccinate all pupils and staff was taken before his death. The health authorities said it's because of the concern over the particular strain which has hit the area so suddenly.
The scale of this outbreak is unprecedented in this country. It's never been seen before. We've been consulting with national experts for advice, and they in turn have been getting advice from the United States, where outbreaks of this nature occasionally occur.
A helpline set up to advise parents has been receiving 100 calls an hour, but there's support for the action taken by the school.
They've done the right thing, but we've had a couple of letters saying that there were 1 or 2 cases earlier on and not to worry about. But with meningitis, you've got to worry. I mean, it's a killer.
Pretty worried. This morning I felt a bit sick coming to school, like what had happened last night and that. So, yeah, I'm happy to come into school to get a vaccination done, yeah.
The vaccination sessions have been supported by parents. In all areas, they've been oversubscribed and will continue until all 2 to 18-year-olds have been seen.
There are no guarantees, the doctors will give us no guarantees that the community is safe or will continue to be safe from an attack of meningitis, but should of course be safer.
The health authority has advised young people against intimate contact like kissing until the outbreak is over. Wales High School will be closed next week. Not, the headmaster says, for medical reasons, but to help staff and pupils get over the traumatic events of the last few days. Christine Stewart, BBC News.
The jury in the Maxwell trial has retired to a hotel for a 6th night. The 5 men and 7 women will rest tomorrow and resume their deliberations on Monday. Ian and Kevin Maxwell and the 3rd defendant, Larry Trachtenberg, deny charges of conspiring to defraud Maxwell Company pension funds. British Rail has tonight confirmed that its freight business is to be sold to an American company. The successful bidder, Wisconsin Central Transportation, last month took over the running of the Royal Train. The company was reported to have bid £225 million for BR's 3 freight hauling businesses.
British Rail's goods trains may only haul 6% of the country's freight nowadays, but their sale to the American company Wisconsin Central has already sparked off a political row even before it's been completed. The government had initially divided its freight business into 3 companies to encourage competition, but with the low level of interest from the private sector, they were re-merged late last year. Wisconsin Central's no stranger to controversy. Its successful bid for the Royal Train and the mail service Rail Express Services sparked off strong criticism that such a symbolic part of the rail system had been sold to an American company. With freight set to follow, Labour says the decision's a disgrace for a country that gave railways to the world.
There's no longer any pretense of competition. This is about monopoly, but the monopoly will be run over the entire British Rail freight network from Chicago.
While opposition parties say the sale once again demonstrates the failings of rail privatisation, ministers say they're happy with the selection of Wisconsin Central. They say it's a blue-chip company with a considerable track record in rail operations abroad. Martin Dowell, BBC News.
The Russian security service has given the Chechen rebels in Dagestan until 7 o'clock tomorrow morning to release their hostages. More than 100 people are being held in the village of Pervomaiskaya on the border with Chechnya. It comes after a day of increased tension between the Chechens and the troops surrounding the village. Talks ended this afternoon with no sign of an end to the crisis. The Space Shuttle Endeavour has successfully completed the main task of its 9-day mission, the retrieval of a Japanese satellite. Despite a short technical delay, the shuttle crew managed to guide the 4-ton structure aboard using a robotic arm.
Have a go for engine start.
Since its launch last Thursday, the space shuttle has been closing in on a Japanese satellite that's been in orbit for 9 months. The rendezvous went smoothly, but there were problems with the satellite's solar panels, which had to be jettisoned. Almost swamped by sunlight reflected from the satellite, they can be seen moving towards the bottom of the picture. With Koichi Wakata, the first full-time Japanese astronaut controlling the shuttle's robot arm, the so-called space flyer was captured and secured in the shuttle's cargo bay.
Koichi's got it, Houston.
We knew the man would come through.
The space flyer and its collection of 11 assorted experiments will be returned to Earth for analysis. The European space program has also been in action today. From the Kourou launch site in French Guiana, the European-made Ariane rocket blasted off for the 82nd time. It carried into orbit 2 communication satellites. Ariane has captured over half of the world market for commercial launches. Over the next few days, the crew of the space shuttle will begin testing hardware for the space station, a major international project that will begin assembly in orbit next year. David Whitehouse, BBC News.
A massive clear-up operation is underway in the eastern United States after snowfalls of more than 30 inches in the last 8 days. Virginia, Maryland, Delaware and the federal capital, Washington, have been declared disaster areas. Dozens of lives have been lost.
8 days after the first snowfall, the skies have finally cleared and the clean-up operation mounted around the clock is at last making some headway. But much of America's east coast is still blanketed in snow, and the costs, commercial and human, are still rising. At least 80 people have died because of the blizzards, many in scores of road accidents throughout the region, others simply of heart attacks brought on by the stress of shoveling snow. And there have been many close escapes. This plane crashing in Kentucky narrowly missed a house and a school bus full of children. The pilot survived. 10 people were injured when the roof of a supermarket in New York collapsed under the weight of snow and ice right on top of the cash registers. And one driver in Washington just managed to avoid a dip in the Potomac River when his vehicle almost skidded off a bridge. Businesses are still calculating the cost of the long blizzard shutdown, but overall losses run into billions of dollars.
And I am fed up. You listening, Mayor Wren?